Hello, my name is Dr. Laura Pasquini, and I'm a lecturer with the University of North Texas and a member of the NACADA Council, which is the Global Community for Academic Advising. Today I'm here to share with you a presentation on what is on the horizon for academic advising. So this is some of my insights, research, and wisdom for what the future of academic advising looks like in higher education. So what do you think the future will look like? If you're going to look ahead, what does academic advising look like for you in higher ed? This will be some of the big questions and considerations I want you to think about during today's presentation. I use a lot of frameworks around my own philosophies for learning, and advising to me is learning. So I think of it as being something that's connected. There's a shared purpose. It's involved in the open network of your college and university campus. And often we share some similar interests to support our learners to have success and succeed beyond the institution. So that's some of what this talk will be framed around. Today I want you to consider what the role of the academic advisor is on your campus. What do you think advising will look like in 10 years from now? And what is the academic advising profession? How do you define it, or how do you describe this in higher ed? And finally, I want you to also think about how will you contribute to the change and development of how advising is organized in our institutions. Today's talk is based on the final chapter, chapter 14 of This is the Academic Advising Approaches, where Mark Lowenstein talks about envisioning the future of advising. He says it's a vision and not a prediction because it's something that he'd like to see and hopes that the future of academic advising will have both an impact and relevance to how higher education evolves. I'll talk about 3 ways the advisors will interact, influence, and integrate into higher education based on this chapter. So advisors and our learners need to interact. Without this interaction, there would not be what the profession is today. Advisors and learners collaborating means many different things. We see our academic advisors and counselors and building relationships and roles. So you have peer-to-peer mentoring, you have opportunities for learning and making connections to their academic degree programs and what their purpose is for their bigger career goals. We often have students come into our office and say, I just need help picking a few classes for next semester, when in actual fact, most of our advisors dig down for bigger questions to ask how they're doing, how things are going, what they're doing right now, what are they working on, where do they work, where are they volunteering, and what is their bigger plan. We know that advising is not a service. It once was just something where we picked classes and would go and select for the next semester. But really, advising is part of the educational process in higher ed. Advising is teaching. And thinking about that teaching experience, Marcia Baxter-McGolda talks about how self-authorship happens within higher education among our learners. It's a strong basis for learning, so we want our learners to become reflective and aware of their experiences. And we think that advisors can be a part of that reflection and self-authorship process. Some practical applications for this interaction for learners and advisors: we need to think about the administrative support and how they value beyond the face-to-face meeting and what that advising looks like in a bigger picture. Will your advisors be part of a community group on campus? Will they advise a club or organization? Will your advisors be part of that teaching process? We also need to evaluate how that advising workflow functions. That might include supporting ongoing training development to help advisors with counseling skills, maybe develop pedagogy and teaching skills, and we don't know what other attributes might come about. We know that mentoring initiatives are key. We know within the Professional Association for Advising there's mentoring, but we need to see mentoring on our campuses and our communities for advising. This includes some cross-training and development and other initiatives because advising is holistic. A student isn't one-dimensional. They may come into an advising appointment and ask about a personal question, a mental health issue, a career exploration idea, and potentially getting involved in something in a study abroad program. Our advisors need to be multifaceted and skilled or cross-trained and mentored across other units at our institutions. We need to develop advisor learning networks and encourage that idea of ongoing learning amongst our advisors at our own campus. Are there times and places where they can get together and meet and discuss updates or challenges or suggestions to support one another? We need to think about offering those opportunities and having support from our administration to do so. Advisors in our campus offer a lot of influence. Advising has a good space and pulse of what's going on at your institution right now. How is academic advising viewed at your campus? If I was to ask you that right now, what would come into your head? We often hear the student experience or the comments. They happen as they leave an office, or they happen as they put it online on Twitter or Facebook. We need to think about what those experiences look like and what they're saying about advising. Also, is your advising unit part of bigger partnerships and collaboration? Are they involved in other aspects of your campus? They shouldn't just be advising for a major, but they should be part of the orientation process, the admission incoming process, or looking at bigger program evaluations for supporting students. We need to think about advising self-assessment, and we need to have some internal evaluation. So is your academic advising unit part of that institutional research process? Are you evaluating what you're doing and how you're meeting those goals? And then is your advising unit connected to bigger strategic goals and missions at your institution? Are you meeting the needs of your administration? Are they guiding you in what you should be doing to help shape the delivery of services, education, and learning at your campus? The value of advising in academia is that it is part of the learning process. So we see curriculum, pedagogy, and learning outcomes woven into various aspects of higher education. So why couldn't advising be seen as that as well? In that, we have advisors as faculty. So we have faculty who currently do multiple roles. So part of their service is advising. Some of it is intentional, and some of it is that's what it is at your institution. So in thinking about that woven in with learning and curriculum and pedagogy, we need to consider having outcomes and expectations for our advisees. Coming in, they need to know that there is a role that they take in the advising process. They could understand what the requirements are. Maybe it's through an advising syllabus and guidance through what they'll have to learn from every semester. And perhaps there's even a course that's required, whether it's for credit or it's woven into the curriculum, where they have to learn about their own career development as well as academic planning development for their role at the institution. The advising and assessment is really important to consider about building those learning outcomes and letting your advisees know there's an expectation that they will be part of the process and not just coming to get the answers. It has to be a two-way interaction. So we need to have learners understand that they're going to be driving where the degree takes them and how they go through to degree completion and graduation. Perhaps it's thinking about a creative way to display the curricular and co-curricular artifacts. So it's creating maybe student portfolios or creating spaces where advisors can mentor what the student has developed and learned along the way. We also need to see that students are partners in the advising assessment. It's really important to get feedback and evaluation, and it's even more important to understand where they are at. Can your students look into their own degree and understand what classes they need next? Are they able to identify their current GPA, whether it's in their major or their cumulative GPA program? Think about questions that your students should know, and how would you assess them on knowing that? How will you know if they have to check in for a final graduation check? Will they understand if there's a concern or they're at risk in a course? These should be things that you are testing and making aware for your advisees, but also empowering them to learn on their own. Advisors are campus thought leaders in that they often take on a myriad of roles and requirements outside their typical face-to-face duties. We see a number of advisors coming on to leadership roles in task force, whether they're chairing a committee or organizing the new orientation model. We have opportunities for advisors to join academics in the research and evaluation of different programs within the institution. And we also see a lot of opportunities for advisors to continuously learn and keep on sharpening the tool as we offer, whether it's a workshop within the HR department to opportunities within continuing education at your institution. Student success is also recognized. So as you have advisors setting out expectations, outcomes, and requirements for their learners, they'll also honor and create opportunities to award and recognize their students for making through progress completions. It might not be a physical grade reward if it's not an official program or class, but it could be an honors banquet. It could be a recognized ceremony and service given to your students. Some practical applications I've talked about will be thinking about how you're going to keep supporting the mentoring of leadership, how you will evaluate, and how they will continuously learn. Advisors and our faculty, there needs to be a bigger integration and not a division between these two, because I think they serve a lot of the same learning outcomes and goals. Looking back, we have to see what advising was. Beyond the clerical role of just picking out classes and making sure the degree was on track, we see that the advisor role has evolved. So we've moved beyond that historical administrative context and become a developmental agency. How the reality is we have differed from our historical past, and we're moving forward to be part of a learning and teaching paradigm process. The advising profession itself is a growing community. It's thriving professionally, and we see a number of researchers, teachers, and different entities coming into this community, bringing the tools and ideas they have from previous experiences. Advising as a profession has grown, so there's practical training ideas and certifications, as well as requirements that some advising areas consider needed. And within the domain, they function and look at specific populations or targeting at-risk or first-generation students. So we see the advising profession supporting a lot of subpopulations that are coming into our colleges and universities today. The advising integration as the faculty role would encourage advisors to think a bit more innovatively on how they design and develop their advising programs or curriculum. They may be involved in research and development, and they might be giving back to our understanding of advising success and learning success in higher education. So if we thought about advisors as contributing to the canyon, being a part of an interdisciplinary study of academics, this might actually generate new ideas and debates about the practice. We have faculty now who already take on advising roles, but what if we had advisor roles that were required to be a little bit different, hybrid, or integrated? So what would that look like in terms of a position, and how would that help us advance as we're thinking about new models in higher education, new organizational structures, and new roles and responsibilities? Some practical applications would be reviewing the advising qualifications. So perhaps there's different tiers and levels for entry. Does your current campus have different levels of advising? And how are they recognized? And what are the preferred qualifications? Will your HR department support designing different roles that are hybrid, dynamic, and cross-disciplinary? So it could be an advisor that works within a writing support learning center to another advisor that helps with information technology and digital literacy. We need to think a little bit more holistically on what that need is at our campus, and if we can integrate and change what that job portfolio looks like. As we infuse service, teaching, and research scholarship into some advising roles, we may need to think about the minimum qualification no longer being a bachelor's or a master's, but perhaps a PhD, and recognizing what promotion tenure would look like for an advisor hybrid faculty position. We also have to think about the community of practice that's developing, both the formal and informal associations and affiliations a number of academic advisors have in higher education. And we need to think about what are some attributes, ideas, and research that they're developing from this practice. And moving forward, we always have to ask, where will we be in supporting academic advising with regards to technology? We know that the landscape from last year's higher education technology is vast and continues to grow. From admissions enrollment through the student life cycle and instruction, we know that there's a number of enterprise and other social solutions being used within technologies at our institutions today. The students are experiencing the need to be connected in many different ways to each other as well as to information. They want to know more at our higher education institutions and how to access that information. So what does it mean if this information is online, or they can connect to other institutions from around the world where they are right now? I think that we often turn to technology as the absolutes, like the big data and the technology is going to save us, because we get into that shiny object syndrome. But before we move forward, I will give a caveat that technology will be great if change of culture and change of models also are impacted, because it's not going to be a one or all thing that will resolve some issues and challenges we have within academic advising today. If I had to ask you what your ideal technology and advising practice was, I'm sure you'd have some answers. I know that the respondents from the 2013 NACADA Technology and Advising Use Higher Ed survey had a few of their own. So the future has different ideas moving forward, whether it's open access information to the role of faculty and work, to understanding what a flipped classroom model looks like. And moving forward, we ask simply to the advisors, what will happen in the future, and what would you like to see in the future for technology in your advising practice? A number of them saw technology as a tool and not a replacement. So it was a way to facilitate the learning, a way to create meaningful interactions when they were able to converse and meet with their students. They saw it a good way as planning and scheduling and helping to support that degree completion. And they also saw it as a way to communicate with students. So it wouldn't remove the relationship aspect, but it would actually enhance it and allow them to connect with them personally and have meaningful discussions, because a lot of the information was already provided to the learner through technology means, electronic means. Ideal technology advising practices was also things they wanted to see: seamless integration. So we know that from that large landscape of technology that's being used, we saw that they valued access of information, getting that right now from if they were remotely talking to students, they could share that information. So they saw that it actually helping their advising practice. What they'd like to do is think about what face-to-face means in different ways. So maybe it's advising from a distance. So what would that look like on a video conferencing platform? Or what would that look like to make it humanized and more meaningful? So there were questions of that with technology and advising. We know that our students want information and they want things on demand. So can we have opportunities to have on demand and mobilized advising? The potential to empower the advisees was key for a number of respondents to the survey. They said they wanted to give ideas and have easy ways to access information so the students saw how they could, like a dashboard. They wanted to have an idea that technology could help their students keep them on track, and also would use more technologies other than phone and email to come in and interact with them. So there was other potentials to empower advisees, but they weren't being used to the full extent that they could. So we don't think technology will determine everything, and the medium is the message. Is that true? Not always. We do see that technology does allow to enhance communication goals. So a number of respondents and advisors said it would be beneficial to have a social hub, so you could have some unique interactions when they weren't coming to see their students. So they want to have different ways to communicate with them and utilize some different social media technologies. But they'd like it to be a bigger part of the role, but it wasn't right now. But that was on the horizon in hopes. And they also desired a few things for technology, like integrating the many platforms. So we saw, as you look at the technologies that are out there, they want to streamline and have access to information and records and communication all in one area. And they said that would be ideal. Data, they always wanted to have more information. I'm not sure if it will save you, but I do think it will inform you, because they said the 360 view of the learner was really important. So they thought integrating information of students, records, connections, financial aid, career, and having a holistic idea, modeled that in technology would be fantastic. So the opportunities for the advisor to know the information, but also, more importantly, the student to be aware, and that would encourage some of their own empowerment in advising. Additional benefits and solutions that a number of respondents saw for technology advising was having information that's accessible from different locations, thinking about new advising models. So how would technology shift some of the way they do advise in higher ed? Obviously, electronic workflows and having some sustainable models that are paperless for advising were really helpful. And they saw functionality for student information, tracking, and recognizing when any student was at risk through early alerts, to simple day-to-day processes, whether it's an online form or reading someone else's notes and records. So there were some shared systems where they could share data about their student and appointments. So thinking about the vision and thinking about some of the data from what ideal technology advising is, how will you contribute to the future of academic advising? What will that look like for you? What will your advisors look like? What will their role on campus look like? And what will the integration with the faculty look like? And could technology help you do that in any way? Think about that connected learning and how you will encourage that production, shared purpose, and openly networked opportunities. And if there's some ways to improve where you're advising at by enhancing a role or position, offering opportunity or training, or thinking about a new delivery way or platform for sharing information, that might move you forward. So consider some options that you have now.